Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Rules of Engagement. As always, I'll be your host, Nick, axslav, ranish, as we look at strategies and tactics using the game of Starcraft 2. Today, we're going to take a look at a couple of games from the Premier Division from WCS America round of 16. We're going to take a look at Snute in particular. Snute, of course, will be playing in the playoffs this weekend. He made the top 8. We'll take a look at some of the games he played to make it that far when he was in the round of 16 last week. First, we're going to take a look at one of his games versus Nestea and talk about how he uses a lot of Zerglings in Zerg versus Zerg. And then we're going to take a look at two of his games from Militia and talk about positional Zerg versus Protoss and also how Vipers can be a pretty good unit. At the end of these three segments is going to be the viewer Q&A. So submit any questions you have to me on Twitter at ISAxslav. Also, feel free to leave questions in the YouTube comments, youtube.com/official. MLGSC2, finding the recent Rules of Engagement videos. And just put any question about anything in there in the comments, and I'll check it out. We'll answer those at the end of whatever episode follows your question. So, of course, we're going to start with the first segment, Make Way for the Zerglings in Snute vs. Nestea. We're going to talk about using upgraded Zerglings in Zerg vs. Zerg. Then we're going to talk about how to defend Muta Harass and a couple key things if you want to deal with a player who has Mutalist and you don't really have Mutalist of your own to defend against them. And also, how to recognize the game state and make an adjustment into your play based on the current state of the game. So we're going to start this replay off at the 6-minute mark. And what I want to talk about first is basically the build that we're going to see Snute doing. So far, it's a very, very standard Zerg vs. Zerg mirror. Both players expanded. Both players, of course, got some gas to get Zergling speed. Both players have a Baiting Nest and a Spine Core, so they can't die to any shenanigans early. You can see that from Nestea. Snute, a little bit later with the Spine Core, but he still has his own defensive Baitings, and of course he has Zergling speed. The big difference here, we see Nestea getting a lair, going up to, adding up to 3 gases. I'll probably take the 4th here in just a minute. What Snute does, instead of teching to lair, right, of course the standard speeding baiting skirmishes in the middle of the map are going on. Instead of taking the lair, what he's going to do, if you fast forward here just a second, you can see adding double evolution chambers. So adding these evolution chambers, what they do is they're going to give them an ability to upgrade the Zerglings. The key aspect of upgraded Zerglings is the fact that in the Speedling, Baitling, micro battles, if your Speedlings have upgrades, you're going to be much stronger than your opponent. And even before those upgrades actually kick in, you should still be stronger than your opponent because you're not saving up a lot of resources to make a whole ton of Mutas. So if you're going to use this style, we're going to delay your lair tech, upgrade your Speedlings. It's very, very important to try to deny your opponent's third, or at least do as much damage to it as possible. This, of course, is important to do because once the Mutas come out, your opponent is going to have map control. So as these upgrades get close to being finished, as your opponent starts to bank more and more resources, see here Nestea's banking as a 600 gas and several hundred minerals as well. Very defensive posture and a natural because he's identified that Snute has a slower lair tech. That's when you can use the fact that your army size should be greater than your opponent's. As soon as these Baitings morph here, we can see the fact that Snute is going to have a little bit of an army advantage over his opponent, as well as being very close finishing these upgrades. You can use that fact to hopefully deny your opponent's third base by streaming Speedings and Baitings in towards it, and of course microing well as well. Now, here comes the next part of the game. Is yes, you want to put as much pressure on your opponent's third base as possible. But as soon as they have Mutas out, that's when you have to realize, okay, now I need to defend against the Mutas Harass. So you can go, kill a third base, you're up a base, but you still have to defend against their Harass as it's coming out across the map. And as they're going to be doing this Harass against you, what you want to keep in mind is, okay, I need to get Spore Crawlers first so I can defend against the Mutas that also instantly die when they cross the map. Spore Crawlers are very good against every air unit in the entire game, with the exception of maybe they're not amazing against battle cruisers and they're not super great against Tempest either, but almost every air unit in the game, Spore Crawlers are very good against, and they're insanely good against Mutalists because they have extra damage to biological. So yes, you want to get that, but you also want to do things like constantly counterattack. See how Snoot's constantly sending Speedlings to attack his opponent? With the upgrade advantage he has 1/1 upgrades, it's very difficult for Nestea to defend this using his own Speedlings and maybe a couple Baitings, so he has to have a lot of Mutas on defense duty. So you can defend Mutas Harass not just by building Spore Cores, but also by constantly counterattacking your opponent and making them stuck on defensive duty with those Mutas so they can't cross the map and bother you, which of course can allow you to get your third all set up nicely. Now, if you're on the Mutas side of things, like Nestea is right here, you have map control for the most part with the Mutas count. But you can't really attack your opponent's worker lines because they're going to have stack defense with the spore crawlers. Or if they don't, then you just go, you win the game. Who cares? But if they do have a stack defense, what you then want to use is when you use your Mulus to isolate reinforcements and to protect your speedlings. So for example, you can kill the queen right here, and you can park the Mulus in this location, which means any units that Snute wants to send to help defend these speedlings, if they're not built from this main hatchery and the macro hatch in the main, if they're built from the natural or the third base, they have to rally through the speedlings, or through the Mulus, excuse me, and then they'll be picked off. So the Mulus are basically protecting the speedlings, and then the speedlings can protect the Mulus by killing the spore cores. You can use them in conjunction to do a lot of damage. So you can see here, that's what Nestea's able to do because he has that Mulus air control. He's able to escort the speedlings into Snute's main base and do a good bit of damage to the main. Now, the one thing to note here is, of course, Snute eventually defends, and now we're at a current game state where it's very important to recognize from both players what's going on. So, the most important thing is this. Nestea has no third base. Snute does have a third base. So, unless Snute lost insane amounts of drones, which he lost a decent amount. I mean, he took, looks like he lost 8 drones to that attack. So, he lost some. But he still has a good number. He still has 45 drones to his opponent's 40. So unless he encounters some insane drone losses, he's going to be economically ahead. Also, it's important to note that he can drone up a third very easily because he has that third hatchery already down. But the advantage Nestea is he has the map control with these Mulus, and very importantly from Nestea, as he was harassing, he noticed his opponent going for the Infestor tech. So he says, okay, my opponent is transitioning to Infestors, and he has a superior economy. This isn't good, right? I mean, if I wait a couple minutes, he'll have a bunch of Infestors out. He can crank out a bunch of Roaches or even just a bunch of Speedlings, and I'm just going to die. He's going to have a head in tech and a head in economy. But right now, because my Mulus just did some damage with the Speedlings to his base, he's going to have to be rebuilding his infrastructure, and he's trying to do this Infestor transition. He's not going to have too many units out in the field. So right now, I need to go for timing in a couple minutes. His superior economy, his superior tech with the Infestors is going to give him the one game, so I have to go for this attack. Of course, Snute trying to do a little counterattack to buy time, but Nestea knowing that it's better to take some damage to his counterattack and just get his attack going as fast as possible. And right here, this is what won the game for Nestea's decision to go for this timing attack. He could have sat back, taken a third, and defended a third with Mulus and tried to macro out. And you know what? Maybe he would have won the game at 20 minutes later, but he would have been playing from behind in a situation where all of his advantages were in the fact that he had map control, he had an ability to temporarily negate the Infestors with the Mulus, and he had seen that his opponent was trying to be a little greedy, going for Infestors and also going for 3 bases of economy before getting any real significant ground army. So of course he comes in here, attacks. We'll just fast forward this and we can see that Roaches, just overwhelming numbers. Infestors use their energy dealing with the Mulus, and Roaches are able to win the game. Nestea takes down that victory. So what's really cool about that game is a couple things. One, the build that Snute did was really awesome. That he got the extra speed and he knew how to play it. And if you're going to do that build, it's very important you deny your opponent's third base. In fact, even if you're not doing that build, in Zerg vs. Zerg, if you're both using Speedlings and Banings into opening, your focus should be, one, well, first of all, make sure you don't have a massive amount of Speedlings or Banings run into your natural without defenses. So make sure you can defend your primary 2 bases. But then once you have that set up, you have a couple Banings on defense and Spine Core, try to deny your opponent's third base. If you can deny the third, you're going to be set up very well for the mid-game. Next, you have to know your strengths. So Snute, for example, knew, okay, my strengths is I have all these Speedings, so I'm going to keep using them to counterattack. I have economy. If I can defend, I'm going to win. So we invested in extra spines and spores. Nestea knew his strengths were, okay, my opponent's investing in the Infestor tech and all these spore cores. My strength is these Mulus, in one battle, they can force Infestors to use up their energy, which give me a window to hit with the Roaches. So he knew his strength was right now he had the better army because he was focusing on building Roaches, while his opponent was focusing on tacking up. And then, of course, you play to your strengths. If your strength is the army, you go for that timing. That's exactly what Nestea did. He played to his strengths, allowing him to win that game. So wraps up this segment on Zerg vs. Zerg and how to use some Speedlings and how to combat a Speedling-heavy opponent in this matchup. Take a short break and be on to his ZVP, really focusing on the positional aspect of Zerg vs. Protoss.